What's up, guys? It's music producer TCustomz with www.tcustomz.com, and today I'm just going to talk about the different effects that I put on a sample when I go to make a sample beat. I had somebody send a question through Twitter about this, and I've touched on these kind of before in some of my other videos, but I kind of want to make a video dedicated just to show you exactly the kind of processing that I do on a sample. This can vary per track depending on what kind of sound I'm going for. This is just kind of overall the standard effects that I put on a sample. Okay, before I start getting into the effects, the processing, then I'm just gonna go ahead and play the sample sequence. I got an 8-bar sequence that I'm working with right now. I'm gonna go ahead and play that with no effects added, so you can just hear what it sounds like. Okay, so the first, I guess, effect, I don't know if you call this an effect, but the first thing that I do when I'm working with the sample is I find basically the pitch and tempo. A transpose will change the pitch and tempo at the same time. So normally I will pitch a sample just because of the speed. If it's slow, I'll pitch it up to go fast. If it's fast, I'll pitch it down so it's slower to match the tempo that I want. For this track, I've actually pitched the sample down a half step. What I've done is I've mapped a macro, a transpose macro, so I can adjust the transpose on all these samples in this drum rack from this one control. So after the transpose and get the right tempo, I usually add an attack to the sample. And I don't have this set up as a macro, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to Filter Global. You can pick any one of these samples, and I'm using a sampler right now inside of the drum rack. Usually take us up to about 30 or 40. I just put it 37, whatever. You can right click on that, copy value to siblings, and that will apply that 37 millisecond attack to all the pads. The reason why I add an attack is basically to make the sample more cohesive, so it's less choppy. A lot of times too, I'll sample right on a drum hit, kick, snare, and the attack kind of fades in that beginning, so it won't conflict with the drums you're gonna add to the track. So the third thing that I do normally is I add an EQ or a filter, depending. Normally I can just add a one-band EQ or a high-pass filter just to remove the bass, and that's to make room for your bass line if you're going to add a bass line afterwards. Now if you're going to use a technique like low-end theory, or you're going to use an existing bass line, you may not do that, but that's what I do. For this track, I actually added an 8-band EQ. It's basically here in the Ableton audio effects. So I drug that over, and I've got, you can see the high pass filter, I've got the bass removed at 386 hertz is my threshold, and that will vary depending on the sample again. And then what I did too is on my 4th band, I dipped out some of the high frequencies, and that was just to make room for the hi-hats, and I don't always do that. For this track I did. So then after the filter or EQ, usually I'll add some kind of processing to widen it. I've talked about a plugin called Doubler 2 from Waves, and I use that plugin a lot. This, again, I'm using it on this, and that's just to give it more stereo effect in the sample. The last effect that I added is a simple delay, and the audio effects in Ableton. It's the simple delay plugin here. Drag that over, and you can experiment with the feedback and the dry wetness of it, and also the delay time. I've got this now set to 2-3 delay. Some, depending, you may want 2-4 or 4-4, and again, it just helps all the chops blend together well. Depending on the track, I may throw on a reverb versus a delay, or may use them both. So for most sample tracks, these are the effects that I add. So I've got all these effects enabled now, and I'll play this sequence through and let you hear how it sounds with all the effects on. So if nothing else, you at least hear that there's not any bass really there. It's more higher, mid to high frequencies. And you probably heard the delay at the end. If you listen real close, you'll hear the small attack on each of the chops, where I put the 37 millisecond attack on there. So anyway, this wasn't meant to be a long video. I just wanted to basically answer the question that was asked on Twitter. I hope this helps out. I know that a couple of you had asked about a couple other topics that I plan to cover in the future. So, keep those requests coming in. If you have a request for a topic or Ableton tutorial, whatever, drop a comment or send us a message on YouTube, Twitter, like us on Facebook, and you can message us there as well. So until next time, happy beat making. Peace.